This hand of mine glows with an awesome power! Its burning grip tells me to defeat you!
Hello and welcome to ProtoMet Reviews. And since it's Mecha March over on Gamezillong, I'm continuing the fun here with a new Gundam review. Last year I covered Zeta Gundam, so naturally I'd cover its sequel, Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta. Except I'm not. In fact, I'm taking a bit of a break from the Universal Century for a bit, and instead I'll be covering the first Gundam series to be set in a different timeline, specifically the Future Century timeline. So let's talk about 1994's Mobile Fighter G Gundam. Ready? Go! As overpopulation on Earth grew, humanity decided to move to space in giant colonies representing the different nations. These colony nations, in order to avoid the outbreak of war, decided to hold a tournament every 4 years. This tournament, called the Gundam Fight, takes place on the planet's surface as fighters from each nation are selected to pilot a Gundam to represent their nation in the tournaments. And these Gundam fighters compete until the nation represented by the last standing Gundam gains the right to rule space until the next tournament. The year is Future Century 60, the year of the 13th Gundam fight, but there's something different about this year's competition. Domon Kashu, the Gundam fighter representing Neo-Japan, has been sent down to not only compete, but also search for a dangerous mobile suit, the Devil Gundam, created and stolen by his brother Kyoji. The Devil Gundam possesses a number of abilities: the ability to self-recover, the ability to self-replicate, and the ability to self-evolve, all of which could bring disaster to the human race. Can Domon find and stop his brother's mad plot? As you notice, this series does not occur during a war, like most other entries in the franchise. As a result, there's no anti-war message, which is also a standard. Instead, what we're treated to is basically if Street Fighter had a mecha anime. This series is not an accurate representation of what the Gundam franchise is. It's a wild departure from what Gundam is meant to be about, and is instead completely bonkers. And I love it. Because it's set during a fighting tournament, we're treated to a variety of fighting styles used by the different competitors. And there are a lot of Gundams in this series, with a wide variety of designs representing the different nations. Some of the designs do border on being a little bit racist, for example, Neo-Mexico's Tequila Gundam, but none of the actual characters that pilot them ever feel such. And each fighter is fighting for their own reasons beyond just winning for their nation. In addition to Domon, whose motives I've already mentioned, there's Neo-America's Chibney Crockett, a poor kid from the streets of New York who aims to prove to the world that he can come from nothing and still become the champion. George Desand of Neo-France fights for the honor of his nation as a proud knight. Neo-China's Sai Saishi fights to revive the glory of the now failing Shaolin martial arts temple on Earth, and Argo Golsky is a space pirate who fights to free his crew after they're caught by Neo-Russia. And those are just a couple of the recurring characters in this series. But let's get back to the main character, as the show focuses on him for the vast majority of the series. Domon is a hot-blooded protagonist who's more likely to start swinging before asking any questions. This does make him feel a lot like the hot-blooded protagonists of other mecha shows such as Mazinger Z, but for the Gundam franchise, it's a breath of fresh air compared to the other more grounded and reserved protagonists in the series. Then there's his partner, Dr. Rain Mikamura, a childhood friend and potential love interest. Because they're so close, it sometimes results in friction between the two, as Domon's drive to pursue his brother can blind him to the problems that are right next to him, and Rain struggles to figure out just what he sees in battle. It gives the show a good will they or won't they dynamic, especially later in the series. Then there's Domon's mentor, Master Asia, who represents Neo Hong Kong, and from his very introduction he is a commanding presence. I mean, this guy is shown defeating a few robots armed only with a sash. All you need to know about him is that he is hardcore. The fact that the Gundam fighters fight using their own bodies as the control pushes this show to the border of super robot territory instead of the franchise's real robot standards. And then the Devil Gundam pushes it the rest of the way over the line by basically being a giant robot monster in the same vein as other super robot shows. That's not to say that the series isn't without some sort of message. There is an environmental message buried in the series. It's just buried in over-the-top martial arts fight scene and masked by a quest to stop a mad scientist from taking over the world. Right? And you can see for yourself just how the world looks thanks to the show's fantastic settings. From the beautiful landscapes of nature to the crumbling cities of humanity, the whole series has excellent visuals. And accompanying the visuals is the show's fantastic soundtrack. Not only are the show's opening and ending themes quite good and pretty catchy, but the background music and insert songs bring the whole world of the series to brilliant life. This wasn't the first Gundam show I saw, and I'll admit it is not the best entry in the franchise. But Mobile Fighter G Gundam is still my personal favorite series in the franchise. To the point I've bought the series not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I still own most of the toys I got from back when the show was first airing here in the US. I strongly recommend giving Mobile Fighter G Gundam a watch, if just to see how bonkers a Gundam show can be. Who knows? You might find you love it just as much as I do. And until next time, this has been ProtoMet. See ya.